The message arrived at midnight Earth time. Admiral Park Dohan was standing on the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn, watching the stars drift slowly past the viewport. He had been a soldier for 30 years, and he had learned to trust the feeling in his gut. Right now, his gut was telling him that something was very wrong. The datapad in his hand glowed with the seal of the Galactic Council. He read the message once. Then he read it again. His hands did not shake, but only because he had trained himself never to show fear. "Commander Kim," he said quietly into his communicator. "Come to the observation deck, now." Fleet Commander Kim Yuna arrived within minutes. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for being the calmest person in any crisis. She had earned that reputation in a dozen battles against pirates and raiders along the outer colonies. But when she read the message, even she could not hide her surprise. "They want our jump drive technology," she said. "All of it. Every schematic, every research file, every prototype." Doan nodded slowly. "They are calling it Article 77, mandatory technology sharing for galactic security. They say we are too young and too dangerous to hold such power alone." Yuna set down the datapad. "And if we refuse, they will cut us off from all trade. They will ban our ships from using the wormhole gates. They will treat us as enemies of the Council." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their slow dance, uncaring and eternal. The jump drive was humanity's greatest achievement. Other species had been traveling through space for thousands of years, but they all depended on the wormhole gates. These gates were ancient, built by a civilization that had vanished long before any current species had learned to walk upright. The Council controlled these gates, and through them, they controlled all movement through the galaxy. But humans had found another way. 20 years ago, Dr. Kang Yunji and her team had discovered how to fold space itself. A ship with a jump drive did not need gates. It could go anywhere, at any time, without asking permission from anyone. This had made humanity valuable to the Council. It had also made them dangerous. "They have been planning this for years," Yuna said quietly. "They let us join the Council so they could watch us, learn our weaknesses. And now they think we are weak enough to threaten." Dawan turned away from the viewport. "We need to speak with Earth. The President must know." On Earth, it was early morning when the emergency session began. President Choi Minji sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by her most trusted advisors. She was 62 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice was still strong. "Tell me everything," she said. Defense Minister Baek Ji-hoon stood and activated the holographic display. The message from the Council appeared in the air above the table, its words glowing red. "They have given us 30 standard days to comply," Ji-hoon said. "If we hand over our technology, they promise to treat us as full members of the galactic community. If we refuse, they will destroy us," said a voice from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Lee Sora. She was sitting alone, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She had spent 20 years representing humanity on the Council station, and she knew their alien masters better than anyone. "They will not attack us directly," Sora continued. "They are too afraid of our ships. But they will starve us. They will isolate us. They will wait until we are desperate, and then they will offer us a choice: surrender everything or die alone in the darkness." President Choi leaned forward. "Is there no room for negotiation?" Sora laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have spent 20 years negotiating with these creatures. They do not see us as partners. They see us as children who have found a dangerous toy. They want to take it away before we hurt ourselves or them." The room fell silent. Outside the windows, the sun was rising over the city, painting the buildings in shades of gold and pink. It was a beautiful morning. It might be one of the last beautiful mornings Earth would ever see. Finally, Ji-hoon spoke. We have options. Our fleet is small, but our ships are faster and more powerful than anything the Council has. If we fight, we lose, Sora interrupted. They have 1,000 ships for every one of ours. They have resources we cannot imagine. They have been conquering species for 12,000 years. She paused. But that does not mean we should surrender. President Choi raised an eyebrow. Explain. Sora stood and walked to the window. For a long moment, she stared out at the rising sun. Then she turned back to face the room. The Council expects us to do one of two things. They expect us to fight, in which case they will crush us. Or they expect us to surrender, in which case they will absorb us. But there's a third option. An option they have never considered, because no species has ever been brave enough or foolish enough to try it. And what is that? The president asked. Sora smiled. It was the smile of a woman who had nothing left to lose. We walk away. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. We leave the Council, Sora continued. We reject their authority. We build our own networks, our own alliances, our own future. They think we need them to survive. We prove them wrong. Ji-hoon shook his head. That is insane. We depend on Council trade for half our resources. Our colonies in their space would be stranded. Millions of people would suffer. Millions of people will suffer no matter what we do, Sora replied. The only question is whether we suffer as slaves or as free people. She turned to face the president directly. I know this is not an easy choice, but I have watched the Council for 20 years. I know what they are, and I know that if we give them our technology today, they will come for something else tomorrow. They will never stop taking until there is nothing left. President Choi closed her eyes. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her decision was made. 30 days, she said quietly. We have 30 days to prepare. Let us use them well. The Council chamber was the largest room Ambassador Lee Sora had ever seen. It was built inside an asteroid that floated at the center of the galaxy, and its walls were made of crystal that had been grown over thousands of years. Light from distant stars filtered through these walls, creating patterns that shifted and changed with every passing moment. 13 species sat in this chamber. 13 species that had divided the galaxy among themselves long before humanity had learned to build fire. They looked down at Sora from their high seats, and in their eyes she saw nothing but contempt. High Arbiter Veleth spoke first. He was Korathi, a species of tall reptiles with scales the color of dried blood. His voice echoed through the chamber like the sound of stones grinding together. The human delegation will now respond to the Council's lawful directive, he said. You have been given 30 days to share your jump drive technology. 29 of those days have passed. We expect your answer. Sora stood alone at the human podium. She was wearing a simple gray uniform, the same one she had worn for 20 years of diplomatic service. She carried no weapons, no guards, no symbols of power. She did not need them. I thank the High Arbiter for his patience, she said calmly. Before I give our answer, I would like to ask a question. Veleth has narrowed. You may ask, in the 12,000 years that this council has existed, how many species have been invited to join as equals? The chamber fell silent. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Nobody answered. I thought so, Sora continued, because the answer is none. Every species in this chamber was either conquered, threatened, or manipulated into joining. You speak of partnership, but what you practice is control. You speak of security, but what you mean is obedience. The Meridian delegate rose from his seat. He was an insect-like creature with 6 arms and mandibles that clicked when he spoke. You forget yourself, human. You are addressing the rulers of a galaxy. Show respect. I am showing exactly the respect you have earned, Sora replied. For 20 years, I have watched this council. I have seen how you treat species that are different. I have seen how you crush anyone who might challenge your power. And I have seen what you truly think of humanity. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. She inserted it into the podium, and a holographic image appeared above her head. It was a recording of a private council session from 3 years ago. In the recording, High Arbiter Velith was speaking. His words were clear and cold. The humans are useful for now, the recorded Velith said. Their technology gives them value, but they are emotional, unpredictable, and dangerous. When the time comes, we will take what we need and discard the rest. They are children playing with fire. It is our duty to take the matches away before they burn the galaxy down. The recording ended. The chamber was completely silent. Velith's scales had turned a darker shade of red. Where did you get that recording? He demanded. That session was classified. I have friends in many places, Sora said simply. Friends who believe that truth is more important than secrets. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. You asked for our answer. Here it is. She took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. The moment that would change everything. Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We reject your directive. We reject your authority. And we reject your assumption that you have any right to tell us what to do. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted and screamed. Velith slammed his staff against the floor, trying to restore order. The Meridian delegate was clicking his mandibles so fast that the sound became a constant buzz. You cannot do this, Velith roared. There are procedures, treaties, obligations. Sora gathered her materials calmly. Those treaties were signed under false pretenses. Those obligations were chains disguised as handshakes. We are done pretending that you are our partners. We are done accepting your scraps while you feast on our achievements. If you leave, you will be alone. Another delegate shouted. No trade. No support. No protection. You will wither and die in the darkness. Sora paused at the door. She turned back to face the chamber one last time. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of that vast room. We were alone when we learned to make fire. We were alone when we reached for the stars. We were alone when we folded space itself. And we will be alone again, if that is what freedom costs. She smiled that same cold smile. But I do not think we will be alone for long. You have ruled this galaxy through fear for 12,000 years. Fear of being different. Fear of being left out. Fear of standing alone against the darkness. She opened the door. Starlight spilled into the chamber from the corridor beyond. Humanity is not afraid, she said. And I suspect we are not the only ones. She walked out, and the door closed behind her. In the chamber, High Arbiter Velith stood frozen. For the first time in his 300 years of life, he did not know what to do. The humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had said no. The Fenari delegate, a small creature covered in silver fur, watched the door where Sora had disappeared. Her name was Talisven, and she had been on the council for 50 years. She had seen many things in that time. She had seen species rise and fall. She had seen wars and peace and everything in between. But she had never seen courage like this. Quietly, so quietly that no one else could hear, she began a plan. The council moved faster than anyone expected. Within hours of Ambassador Sora's departure, the orders went out to every corner of the galaxy. Human ships were banned from all wormhole gates. Human traders were expelled from council stations. Human colonies in council space were given a choice that was not really a choice at all. Renounce your citizenship, the Corinthian soldiers told them. Swear loyalty to the council, or leave. Most chose to leave. On the colony world of New Daegu, 17,000 humans gathered their belongings and walked to the spaceport. They carried whatever they could hold in their arms. Family pictures, children's toys, seeds for gardens they would never plant. Corinthian soldiers watched them go with expressions that might have been satisfaction or might have been something else entirely. Corinthian soldiers watched them go with expressions that might have been satisfaction or might have been satisfaction, or watched them some go with expressions that might have been satisfaction or might have been satisfaction or might have been something else entirely. Little girl named Hana walked beside her mother, clutching a stuffed animal that had seen better days. She looked up at the alien soldiers with their red scales and their cold eyes. Why do they hate us, Mama? She asked. Her mother squeezed her hand tightly. They don't hate us, little one. They are afraid of us. And sometimes fear looks exactly like hate. Admiral Park Dawn stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, coordinating the largest evacuation in human history. His face was gray with exhaustion. He had not slept in 3 days. 17 million people, Commander Kim Yuna said quietly, reading the latest reports. 43 worlds. And we have 6 months before the Council cuts off all access completely. Then we do it in 5, Dawn replied. Send every ship we have. Cancel all other missions. Every human comes home. The Council watched and waited. They expected panic. They expected riots. They expected desperate humans to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness and offering their technology in exchange for mercy. They did not expect. Dr. Kang Yoonji, she was 58 years old, with gray hair that she never bothered to brush and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She had been working at the Lunar Research Station for 30 years, and she had been waiting for this moment for almost as long. President Choi, she said during their first video call, I have something to show you. The holographic image that appeared showed a map of human space. But this map was different. It was covered with glowing points of light that connected to each other in a complex web. We call it the Horizon Network, Yoonji explained. Independent jump points. We build them ourselves, using technology we have been developing in secret for 2 decades. Each point connects to every other point in the network. We do not need their gates. We never did. The president stared at the map. Why did you not tell us about this before? Yoonji smiled sadly. Because I hoped we would never need it. I hoped the council would learn to see us as equals. I was wrong, of course. But at least now we are prepared. Within weeks, construction began. Mining ships went out to asteroid fields that had never been claimed. Factory stations started producing components that had been designed but never built. Engineers who had been working on ordinary projects were suddenly reassigned to something they had never heard of. They worked without rest. They worked without complaint. They worked because they knew that the future of their species depended on what they built. The first jump point went online 3 months after the withdrawal. It connected Earth to the colony world of New Jeju, a journey that would have taken 6 months through council gates. Now it took 6 seconds. By the end of the first year, humanity had 17 jump points. Trade continued through neutral party species that were not officially part of the council, or species that did not care about council rules. Resources flowed. Food was distributed. The expected collapse never came. High Arbiter Veleth read the reports with growing frustration. His scales had been dark red for months now, a sign of anger that his advisors had learned to fear. This is impossible, he said. They should be starving. They should be desperate. Why are they still functioning? His chief intelligence officer, a Karate female named Salaith, bowed her head. They are resourceful, High Arbiter. More resourceful than we anticipated. Resourceful, Velith repeated. The word tasted bitter in his mouth. They are insects. They have been a spacefaring species for barely 3 centuries. We have been ruling this galaxy since before their ancestors climbed down from the trees. Perhaps that is why they are dangerous, Salaith said quietly. They have not learned that some things are impossible. Velith dismissed her with a wave of his hand. But her words stayed with him long after she was gone. Meanwhile, on a small station at the edge of Council space, a secret meeting was taking place. The Fenari ambassador, Talis Ven, sat across from a human she had never met before. He was a young man named Cho Minho, an unofficial representative sent by Ambassador Sora. You are taking a great risk by meeting with me, Minho said. Tal Sven's silver fur rippled in what might have been a laugh. I have been on the council for 50 years. I have seen what they do to species that show independence. I have seen what they did to my own people 3,000 years ago. She leaned forward. The council calls you dangerous. They say you must be controlled for the good of the galaxy. But I have been watching you, and I see something different. What do you see? Minho asked. Hope, Talis Ven replied. For the first time in 3,000 years, I see hope. She extended a small data chip across the table. This contains information about Council fleet movements, supply routes, and defensive weaknesses. Use it wisely. Minho took the chip carefully. Why are you helping us? Talis Ven stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars burned in the endless darkness. Because I am tired of being afraid, she said. And because I believe that if anyone can change this galaxy, it is you. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. 2 years of building, growing, and becoming stronger. 2 years of the Council watching and waiting, trying to understand what had gone wrong with their plans. High Arbiter Velith was not a patient creature. Enough, he declared during a closed session of the Council's military command. The humans have made fools of us for too long. They sit in their little corner of space, trading with whoever they please, ignoring our authority. It is time to remind them who rules this galaxy. The target was a border colony called New Bizin. It was a small world, home to 300,000 humans. It had mines and factories, but nothing of great strategic value. Velith chose it precisely because it seemed unimportant. We will send a peacekeeping force, he explained. 140 ships. We will occupy the planet and demand that the humans surrender their criminals, anyone who played a role in their illegal withdrawal from the Council. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. When they refuse, we will have justification for further action. The fleet launched a week later. 140 warships, the pride of the Carisi Dominion, jumping through wormhole gates toward human space. Their commander was a veteran named Kethval, who had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. He expected an easy victory. Fleet Commander Kim Yuna was waiting for him. She had received a warning from Talis Ven 3 days earlier. 3 days to prepare, to position her ships, to plan for what was coming. It was not much time, but it was enough. 47 ships, her tactical officer reported as the Karathi fleet emerged from the wormhole gate. We are outnumbered 3-1. Una nodded calmly. Then we will have to work harder. Signal all ships. Execute pattern delta. The Karathi commander saw the human fleet on his sensors and laughed. 47 ships against 140. By Council standards, this battle was already over. All ships, advance in standard formation, Kethval ordered. We will crush them in a single wave. The Karathi fleet moved forward, their ships forming perfect lines, their weapons charging. They had fought 100 battles like this before. They knew exactly how it would go. The humans would try to retreat, to escape, to buy time, and the Korathi would chase them down and destroy them one by one. But the humans did not retreat. They disappeared. One moment, 47 ships were hanging in space before the Korathi fleet. The next moment, they were gone. Kethvolume stared at his sensors in confusion. Where did they go? He demanded. Find them. His tactical officer was pale with shock. Commander, they are behind us. The human ships had jumped. Not through wormhole gates. There were no gates here. They had simply folded space and appeared on the other side of the Korathi formation. And before Kethvol could give new orders, they jumped again. They appeared above the fleet. They appeared below. They appeared in the gaps between ships, firing at point-blank range and then vanishing before anyone could return fire. It was not a battle. It was chaos. Impossible. Kethvolume screamed. They cannot jump so quickly. Their engines should need time to recharge. But the humans had been improving their technology for 2 years. What once took minutes now took seconds. What once required careful calculations now happened almost instantly. The Korathi could not track them, could not predict them, could not defend against weapons that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The battle lasted 9 minutes. When it was over, 129 Korathi ships were floating wreckage. 11 survivors fled back through the wormhole gate, their engines damaged. Their crews in shock. Commander Kim Yuna watched them go. She did not pursue. She did not fire on the retreating ships. Let them run, she said quietly. Let them tell everyone what happened here. On the bridge of her flagship, her crew was celebrating. But Yuna felt no joy. She knew that this was not the end. This was only the beginning. On Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. People danced in the streets. They cheered and wept and held each other. For 2 years, they had lived in fear of the Council's revenge. Now that fear was replaced with something new. Pride. President Choi Minji addressed the planet that evening. Her face was calm, but her eyes were bright. Today, our fleet won a great victory, she said. But we must not celebrate too loudly. The Council is vast and powerful. They will not forget what happened at New Bizin. They will come again. With more ships, with more weapons, with more determination to see us broken. She paused, letting her words sink in. But they will find us ready. They thought we were weak because we were young. They thought we were afraid because we were alone. They were wrong. We are humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us. We have climbed from caves to stars in barely 10,000 years. And we will not bow to anyone who thinks they have the right to rule us. In the council chamber, High Arbiter Veleth listened to the reports with growing horror. 129 ships destroyed. His greatest commander humiliated. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had demonstrated power that the council could not match. How? He whispered. How is this possible? No one answered. No one had an answer. That night, 12 species began to reconsider their positions. The Fenari had been right all along. The humans were different. The humans were dangerous, but not dangerous in the way the council had feared. Dangerous because they made others believe that change was possible. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. 5 years since Ambassador Lisora had stood alone in that vast chamber and said the words that changed everything. Now she sat in a different room, on a different station, waiting for visitors she had never expected to see. The lunar diplomatic station was new. Humanity had built it in the last 2 years, a symbol of their independence and their willingness to engage with the galaxy on their own terms. It was smaller than the Council's asteroid fortress, but it was beautiful. Great windows looked out on Earth and Moon, and the walls were decorated with art from every human culture. Sora was 60 years old now. Her hair had turned completely silver, and there were deep lines around her eyes. But her mind was as sharp as ever, and her spirit had not dimmed. "They are arriving," her assistant informed her. 12 delegations. Every species except the Korathi. Sora nodded slowly. "Good. Let them in." The defeat at New Bizon had broken something in the Council. Not their power. They still controlled most of the galaxy. But their confidence, their certainty that they were unbeatable, had been shattered. And once that certainty was gone, other cracks began to appear. The Fenari had been first to openly break ranks. 6 months after the battle, they had announced full diplomatic and trade relations with humanity. Other species had followed, quietly at first, then more boldly. The Council had threatened and demanded and warned, but they could not punish everyone. High Arbiter Veleth had been removed from power 3 years ago. The official reason was health problems. The true reason was that he had failed, and the Council did not forgive failure. His replacement was a younger Korathi named Saleith, the same intelligence officer who had warned him about human resourcefulness. She had learned from his mistakes, but the Korathi were not here today. They were still too proud, too angry, too afraid of what admitting failure would mean. The 12 species who had come were the ones who had seen the future and chosen to be part of it. The delegation entered the conference room one by one. Sora recognized many of them from her years on the Council. The Meridian delegate, his mandibles clicking nervously. The tall, thin Velati, their crystal bodies glowing softly. The small, furry Fenari Talisvan herself, now officially representing her people rather than hiding in shadows. And there were new faces too. Species that Sora had only read about. Species that had been conquered so long ago that they had forgotten what freedom felt like. Admiral Park Dalhan stood by the window, watching the delegations arrive. He was 65 now, and he had retired from active command 2 years ago. But he had asked to be here for this moment, and President Choi had agreed. "I never thought I would see this day," he said quietly to Sora. "When I read that first message from the Council, demanding our technology, I thought we were finished. I thought they would crush us like they had crushed so many others." Sora smiled. "We are harder to crush than they expected." When everyone was seated, the new Meridian representative spoke first. His voice was careful, almost humble a tone that Sora had never heard from a Council species before. "We have come to discuss possibilities," he said. "The Council acknowledges that our approach to humanity was misguided. We seek to explore whether renewed relations might be possible." Sora looked around the table. 12 species, representing trillions of beings. 12 species that had once looked down on humanity as children playing with dangerous toys. Now they sat here, asking for something they had never asked for before: respect. "Let me be clear about something," Sora said, and her voice was not harsh, but it was firm. "Humanity will never again be a junior member of anything. We will never share our technology because someone threatens us. And we will never forget that when we asked to be treated as equals, you answered with demands and isolation and war." The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But no one argued. No one interrupted. "That said," Sora continued, "we are not interested in revenge. We have no desire to become what you were, rulers who control through fear and punishment. We want something different. Something better." She stood and walked to the window. Outside, Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and beautiful. The home of humanity. The planet that had given birth to a species stubborn enough to stand alone against the galaxy. "We want to build a new alliance," she said. "Not a council that rules from above, but a partnership of equals. Every species with a voice. Every species with the right to say no. Every species free to walk their own path. Talisven spoke up, her silver fur rippling with emotion. Many of us have dreamed of such a thing for centuries. We never believed it was possible. Sora turned back to face the room. It is possible now, not because humanity is stronger than the Council, but because we have shown that the Council is not as strong as they believed. We have proven that their rules can be broken. Their power can be challenged. Their fear can be defeated. She extended her hand, palm up, in the human gesture of offering. We cannot change 12,000 years of history in a single day. There will be difficulties, disagreements, perhaps even conflicts. But if we are willing to truly try to treat each other as equals, then I believe we can build something that this galaxy has never seen before. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Talisven stood and crossed to where Sora waited. She placed her small, furred hand in Sora's larger one. "The Fenari accept," she said. "We've been waiting for this moment for 3,000 years. One by one, the other delegates followed. Hands of all shapes and sizes, claws and tentacles and appendages that had no human name. 12 species, choosing hope over fear, change over tradition, partnership over domination. Admiral Dohan watched from his place by the window. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the years he had spent defending humanity against threats from the stars. And he realized that this moment, this quiet, simple moment of hands joining hands, was more important than any victory in battle. This was the beginning of something new. Outside, the stars burned on, as they had for billions of years. But something had changed. Something had shifted in the ancient darkness. A new light was spreading, carried by beings who had learned that courage was stronger than fear. And that freedom was worth any price. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the quiet of the conference room, as hands held hands across species that had once been strangers, humanity took its first step into a future they would help to build. Not as children who needed guidance, not as servants who needed masters, but as equals. Among equals, walking together into the unknown, the way it should have been from the beginning.